8 warning signs. You're isolating yourself without realizing it. There's a quiet kind of loneliness that doesn't come with empty rooms or silent phones. It comes when you're still showing up, still smiling, still answering, "I'm fine." But something beneath the surface has started to drift. You pull back, just a little. You choose comfort over connection. You keep the curtains closed a little longer. You don't even notice it at first. It feels like rest, like peace, like protecting your space. Until one day, you realize you don't feel like yourself anymore. No one tells you that isolation doesn't always look like loneliness. Sometimes it wears the mask of independence, of busyness, of burnout. It sneaks into your life not in big, obvious moments, but in small choices that start to stack. You skip the coffee date. You forget to text back. You cancel plans and tell yourself you needed the time. And maybe you did. But slowly, your world starts shrinking. Conversations grow shorter, laughter grows quieter, and your sense of connection, both to others and to yourself, starts to feel like something from another life. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's not about pointing fingers or saying you should have tried harder. It's about noticing the ways you might be closing doors without meaning to, noticing how often you say you're just tired when what you really are is disconnected. Because the truth is, we don't always realize we're isolating ourselves until we've already started living behind a wall we didn't mean to build. But here's the part that matters most. The wall isn't permanent. You're not broken. You're not hopeless, you're just human. And humans need people. We're wired for connection, not just to survive, but to feel alive. That doesn't mean you have to be surrounded all the time. It means you deserve to be seen, to be known, to be understood by someone who really listens when you speak and notices when you fall quiet. If you've been feeling a little more distant lately, emotionally, socially, spiritually, this video is for you. It's not a warning, it's an invitation to take a gentle look at your own patterns, to see if the space you've created to protect yourself has also started keeping love out. Let's talk about the subtle ways we isolate ourselves without realizing it, and how step by step we can begin to reconnect before it's too late. There's a kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. You go out, you sit across from someone who cares about you, you smile, you talk, you listen, and then you come home and collapse. Not just physically, but emotionally. It feels like every word took effort. Like your face muscles are sore from holding up a mask. Even being around the people you used to love seeing now feels draining. This is one of the first quiet signs of emotional withdrawal, and it's so easy to misunderstand. You might chalk it up to age, stress, or just being introverted. But the truth is, when your emotional cup is empty, even good people can feel like too much. Not because they've changed, but because you have started retreating without meaning to. When we isolate ourselves, intentionally or not, our social stamina begins to shrink. It's like a muscle we stop using. The longer we go without deep, energizing connection, the more overwhelming it feels to engage even in small ways. So we keep our interactions short. We keep things surface level. We avoid the deep stuff, not because we don't want connection, but because we're afraid we can't handle it. And here's where it gets tricky. The less connection we allow, the more tired we feel. The more tired we feel, the more we avoid connection. It becomes a quiet, self-sustaining loop. A loop that makes you feel guilty for not having the energy to enjoy the people you once loved being around. But this isn't about blaming yourself for being tired. It's about asking the deeper question: why am I so drained by the very people who used to fill me up? Sometimes the answer is emotional burnout. Sometimes it's unspoken grief. Sometimes it's a buildup of unprocessed feelings you've been carrying alone. Whatever it is, that exhaustion is a signal. Not a sign of failure, but a call to pause and check in with your inner world. Because when you start feeling consistently depleted by connection, it may be time not to cut people off, but to reconnect with yourself first. You used to text just to say hi. You'd send a funny meme, make a quick call, drop by someone's place without overthinking it. But now, days pass, then weeks, then maybe even months, and you tell yourself the same thing every time. I've just been really busy. It's a believable story, especially in the kind of world we live in. Work piles up. Errands don't stop. Family needs something. You're tired. You have things to do. But if you really stop and look closely, you'll start to notice something else. The time was there. You just didn't reach out. Not because you didn't care, but because something inside of you told you not to bother. Sometimes it's fear of rejection. Sometimes it's shame. Sometimes it's the creeping belief that you're a burden, or that everyone else has moved on without you. And so you don't call, you don't reply. You say later and mean it. But later never comes. This is one of the sneakiest signs of isolation. You look like you're just juggling life, but really you're slowly building a world where no one really knows how you're doing, because you've quietly stopped giving them the chance. And here's the thing. People start to believe your silence. They assume you're fine. They stop reaching out too. And then, without anyone doing anything wrong, distance begins to settle in like dust in a room no one uses anymore. The good news? That room isn't locked. It takes just one message. One, "Hey, I was thinking about you." One moment of honesty. You don't have to make it big. You just have to start. Because the longer you wait, the more it feels like you're too far gone. But you're not. You're never too far to come back. And the people who really care, they won't ask why you disappeared. They'll just be glad you showed up again. At first it seems harmless. You start shopping a little later in the evening to avoid the crowds. You take a different walking route so you don't bump into neighbors. You go to the gym during off hours. You eat lunch at your desk instead of with your coworkers. Nothing dramatic, just small shifts, almost invisible. But those changes begin to stack. And one day you realize your whole life has been rearranged, not for convenience, but for distance. This is how isolation often begins, not with a grand withdrawal, but with tiny edits to your day that help you feel safe, unseen, uninterrupted. It feels easier this way. It feels calmer. You tell yourself, "I just like my space," or "I'm too tired for small talk." And maybe that's true sometimes. But deep down, a part of you knows. These changes weren't just about comfort. They were about protection. From what? From vulnerability. From being asked, "How are you really?" From having to show up in a world that feels loud and overwhelming. From the risk of awkwardness, or the energy it takes to connect. It's easier to disappear a little at a time than to face the complexity of being seen. But when your routine becomes a wall instead of a rhythm, something shifts. Life begins to feel narrower. Your world gets smaller, not just physically but emotionally. The accidental run-in that used to brighten your day is gone. The chance to feel part of something bigger disappears. And here's what no one tells you. Comfort can become a cage if you're not careful. You don't need to force yourself into crowds or say yes to every invitation. But it might be worth asking yourself, when did I start arranging my life to avoid people instead of inviting them? And because sometimes the smallest moments of connection, the smile at the store, the 5-minute chat on the sidewalk, are the very things that keep us tethered to the world. You're still talking. You're still answering messages. You're still showing up to events. But something's missing. The words coming out of your mouth don't feel like they're coming from the deeper parts of you. They're polite, safe, predictable. You say what you're supposed to say, but you're not saying what's real, and no one seems to notice. Maybe they laugh at your jokes. Maybe they think you're doing fine. But inside, you know, you've stopped showing up as your full self. You've pulled the curtain closed on the parts of you that feel too raw, too complex, too much. This is one of the most invisible forms of self-isolation. Emotional silence in the middle of a conversation. You might be surrounded by people, but you feel alone because the version of you they're seeing is carefully curated, filtered, guarded. And often this doesn't happen all at once. It starts with one moment, one time you opened up and didn't feel heard. One conversation where you felt judged or dismissed or misunderstood. So you pull back just a little. You test the waters less. You keep it light, but then it becomes a habit. You stop sharing not because you have nothing to say, but because you've convinced yourself it's not worth it. You don't want to be a burden. You don't want to deal with the awkward silence, the change in tone, the subtle shift when someone doesn't know how to respond. So you protect yourself by going quiet. But the price of that protection is connection. The kind of connection that only comes when you let someone really see you, messy thoughts and all. And yes, not everyone will understand. Not everyone will hold your truth with care. But some people will, and those people, they're worth the risk. You don't need to share everything with everyone, but you deserve to be known, deeply, honestly, unapologetically, because no matter how strong you are, you were never meant to carry the weight of your truth all alone. There's a certain comfort in scrolling. It asks nothing of you. It doesn't talk back. It doesn't expect vulnerability. You can disappear into it, watch videos, read articles, swipe through photos, and for a little while, it feels like connection, like you're with people, like you're not alone. But then you look up. Hours have passed, and the silence in the room hasn't changed. This is one of the clearest and most common signs of unintentional isolation. Turning to screens instead of people, even when your heart is quietly aching for something real. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't care, but because reaching out to a real person feels riskier, more tiring, maybe even painful. So instead, you choose what's easy, what's predictable, what doesn't require you to be seen. And in the moment it helps, it really does. But over time it leaves you emptier. Because no matter how much content you consume, it can't replace a voice saying your name. It can't replicate someone laughing with you, not at a meme, but at something you shared from your own life. It can't replace the healing power of being held, being heard, being understood. Screens are not evil, but they become dangerous when they start to replace presence, when they fill the space where real people used to be, when they become the default, not for entertainment, but for escape. So if you're reaching for your phone every time you feel that dull ache of loneliness, pause, just for a second. Ask yourself, what am I really looking for right now? Sometimes the answer isn't a funny video. Sometimes it's someone who remembers your stories. Someone who asks how you're really doing. Someone you can sit beside, even in silence, and feel less alone. You deserve more than pixels. You deserve people. You replay the conversation over and over in your head. Did I say too much? Did I talk too little? Did they look bored? Did I make it awkward? You analyze every pause, every facial expression, every word you wish you could take back or rephrase. This isn't just shyness. It's a sign that your confidence in connection has started to erode, and it's exhausting. When you begin isolating, even without realizing it, your social muscles atrophy. What used to feel natural now feels like performing. Every interaction becomes a test. And when you start seeing social connection as something you can fail at, the fear of failure keeps you further away. So you talk yourself out of showing up. Or when you do show up, you leave feeling worse than when you arrived. Not because anything bad happened, but because your mind won't stop replaying what might have gone wrong. This kind of overthinking is a defense mechanism. You want to protect yourself from rejection, embarrassment, judgment. So your brain goes into overdrive, trying to prevent pain by rehearsing every scenario. But what it ends up doing is keeping you in a cycle of hyper-awareness and second-guessing. And that cycle keeps you distant from others and from your own peace. The sad irony? Most people aren't judging you. They're wondering if you like them. They're inside their own minds, spinning their own worries. The moments you thought were awkward, they probably didn't even notice. But you did. Because you've been living in your head more than in the moment. And that's the shift that isolation creates. It makes connection feel like pressure instead of presence. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You don't have to say everything right to be accepted. You just have to be there, flawed, honest, trying. That's enough. If you're overthinking every encounter, it's not because you're broken, it's because you care. But that caring can become a cage if you don't set it down and just let yourself be human. Talk. laugh, mess up, connect anyway. Because real connection lives on the other side of letting go. When was the last time you did something new with someone else? Not something extravagant, not a vacation or a celebration. Just a moment that stuck, a shared laugh, a small adventure, a new experience. Something simple but meaningful enough that it would stay with you if you let it. For many people caught in quiet isolation, that question is met with silence. Life starts to feel like a loop. You wake up, do the same things, talk to the same people, or no one at all, and end the day with nothing new to tuck into your memory. You tell yourself it's routine, you call it stability, but deep down you feel the fog setting in, the dull sameness that makes the days blur together. This is one of the most subtle signs that you've been withdrawing. Your world has stopped growing. There are no new stories to tell, no unexpected moments to hold on to. Your calendar might be full, but it's full of maintenance, not meaning. Errands, appointments, obligations, but very few moments that make your heart feel alive. You don't need a bucket list. You don't need to book a flight or start a journal, though you can. What you need, what you deserve, is to be surprised by life again. You deserve to say yes to a walk you didn't plan, to sit on a porch and talk about nothing with someone who matters, to try the new cafe even if it's just a different corner of the same town. You deserve to look back at this week and remember something about it, something good, something new, something shared. Because when you stop making new memories, life doesn't just slow down, it begins to fade. You're not here just to exist. You're here to live. And the people you love, they want to live alongside you, if you'll let them in. So say yes to something this week, however small. Your memory deserves a new story. This might be the most hidden sign of all. You're functioning, you're polite. You show up when you need to. Maybe no one suspects anything's wrong. Maybe you don't even think anything's wrong. You've told yourself a convincing story. I'm just a little tired. This is just how life is now. I don't really need people like I used to. You convince yourself you're fine, but late at night or in those quiet in-between hours of the day, something inside you aches. Not just for company, but for recognition. You miss being known. Not just chatted with. Not just checked on. Known. You miss the feeling of someone remembering your favorite joke, the way someone used to look at you and immediately know something was off, the comfort of not having to explain yourself, the gift of being seen not for what you do or how you appear, but for who you are. When we isolate, even subtly, we often tell ourselves we don't need anyone to understand us, that we're better off managing things on our own. But the truth is, humans don't just want connection. We want mirrors. We want someone who reflects us back to ourselves with kindness and truth. Someone who reminds us that we matter, that we're not invisible. And the longer you go without that kind of connection, the easier it is to believe the lie that no one can really know you anymore. But it's not true. It might take time. It might take risk. It might take courage to show up again as your real self. Not polished, not perfect, but present. But there are people in this world who are waiting to meet the version of you that's real, who are ready to see you, hear you, know you, and love you as you are. Don't settle for being fine. You were made to be known. Isolation doesn't always begin with a slammed door or a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes it begins with silence, with a skipped text, a canceled plan, a small shift in routine, a smile that doesn't quite reach your eyes anymore. It begins with tiredness, with fear, with the aching belief that maybe people don't really need you the way they used to, that maybe you're too much or not enough, that maybe life is easier when you just keep your world a little smaller, a little quieter, a little safer, and so bit by bit you step back. And the hardest part? You don't even realize you're doing it, until one day you look around and wonder when your life stopped feeling full. But here's the truth. Isolation doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. It means you've been hurt or stretched thin or tired of trying to be okay when you weren't. It means you did what you had to do to survive. But now, it's time to start living again. You don't have to wait until you're ready. You don't need the perfect words or a grand plan or a dramatic return to community. You just need one honest moment, one message, one step back towards someone who sees you, one walk outside, not to escape but to reconnect. Because connection isn't found in crowds, it's found in courage. The courage to say, I miss people. The courage to admit, I'm not fine. The courage to reach out even when you feel rusty and unsure. And maybe the person you reach out to is lonely too. Maybe they've been waiting for someone, you, to break the silence. You don't have to do it all today, but you can do something. Answer that message. Take the walk. Speak a little more honestly the next time someone asks how you're doing. Let someone in, just a little. You are not too far gone. You are not too late. There is still so much love and life waiting for you outside the walls you've built. And one day you'll look back and be proud, not because you stayed strong in silence, but because you had the courage to come back to connection. You were never meant to do this alone, and now you don't have to.